Hi there, it's Carter again. It's Friday night in Alabama. Want proof? Listen. There you go. Friday night in Alabama. Last night I finished off at when I was 11 years old and was to spend the night with my best friend and realized that I had feelings for him that didn't quite match the way a boy was supposed to feel about another boy. Feelings of puppy love, I suppose. So I wanted to pick up there. Again, my story is probably very similar to most gay kids who are suddenly confused by what's going on and it doesn't match what the society around them is telling you. But in the case here, which was probably the case in many places in parts of the country in the 70s, was that being gay was just not okay. It just wasn't. But certainly in a very conservative, southern, religious, all-white town, it was, just not something that was okay. But I don't really remember necessarily worrying so much about that early on. I just remember being attracted to boys instead of girls, although, I did manage to, at least try to act attracted to girls, and I would try to tell myself that I was attracted to certain girls, but the simple fact was I was looking at the boys, I wasn't looking at the girls, and there were a lot of really attractive boys in my hometown, most of whom probably would have beaten me to a pulp if I had told them that. Really not a whole lot to say. My method of dealing with being gay in high school mainly consisted of flying under the radar. I just kind of kept to myself. I had my little crew of friends. We didn't, stick out a whole lot, and I always sort of made sure that, and this may sound awful, but that I tried to make sure that I wasn't the one that was going to get picked on. So typically what I found was that other than just a few times, which was just general dealing with school bullies just being obnoxious, I was never beaten up. I don't even really recall ever being called out, for being gay. That was reserved for a couple of other kids in my school who I always really felt bad for and would try to support them as much as I could, but they were not going to come out. If they were, I don't know if they were or not. This was something that you didn't talk about, and I certainly was not going to talk about it. The interesting thing was that it really wasn't my family that shaped my beliefs on these things. It was actually the community around us. It was a pretty vocal community when it came to religion, and the local, specifically the local Southern Baptist Church, was really kind of who set the moral code for the town. For instance, I remember they had their own cable access TV station, which granted for the time was pretty innovative, but they would broadcast their services and things. And I remember there was a singing group there at that church. I did not go there. My family was Presbyterian. But it was kind of known that, this was the group to be in. But it was always, I remember, at least in my family, it was kind of a joke that they would do very limited hand movements and then maybe some foot movements, but never at the same time, because back then there was still the belief in that church that dancing was a sin. So they were really more concerned with whether those kids were dancing or whether they were just doing movement, which would apparently was a different thing and okay with God. So I don't remember really having to deal with it so much in my high school years, just simply because it just didn't come up. I guess I knew that gay was a thing, and I mean, it wasn't invisible, but nobody in my town was gay. I mean, come on, it just didn't exist. So I do remember that, I was always attracted to boys, and I remember one time, we didn't have access to anything. There was no internet. You could not, for instance, even if you were straight, if you wanted a copy of Playboy, that was hard to come by. They did not sell them in stores because it was against the law here to do that sort of thing. Alcohol, the sales of alcohol was against the law, and in fact it was against the law up until a few years ago. This was a dry county, so intelligently so, people had to drive about 30 miles from here, buy their booze in another county, and then drive back. Hopefully they weren't drinking, but they were. Stupid law. Anyway, so yeah, I remember one time that, I don't even know how they got a hold of it, but a friend of mine jokingly sent another friend of mine a birthday card, and in it were some photos cut out of a gay pornographic magazine, and I remember just being completely and totally shocked that this was something that men would do with men, and frankly it horrified me. And I think part of why it I have to admit I was certainly drawn to it, but that fact horrified me, because it was just more, it gave more credence to the fact that, yeah, these thoughts in my head were reals, and I would make effort to try to make myself be attracted to, things like I'd grab my sister's Cosmopolitan magazine and try to be attracted to the women in the scantily clad bathing suits in there. And, I was a teenager, so it wasn't totally impossible to be attracted to it. But it just really was something that exploring, at least if you were gay, exploring your sexuality at that time in this part of the country in the 70s and then on into the 80s when I was in high school, it just didn't happen. And so it was really more, I think, when I moved on to college when it began to be more of a challenge for me. And I will get into that in the next video. But for now, if you want to subscribe, which I really hope you do, I've gotten actually kind of flattered. A number of people have liked the page and have subscribed, so I really appreciate that. If you want to subscribe, you can click, right up there, the logo for Older and Out, and you can subscribe to the channel by clicking that, and then the next video should have already appeared about right there. So we'll talk to you next time when we get into my college years. Bye. Have a great weekend.